ॐ विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यस्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकलना वैचित्रचित्रीकृतं मायावीव विजृम्भयत्यपि महायोगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ Verse 24. द्विगुणीकृतचैतन्ये जन्मनाशानुभूतितः अकूटस्थं तदन्यत्तु कूटस्थमविकारतः. So Vidyaranya is talking about the difference between Chit and Chidabhasa from the standpoint of internal difference. First we saw already external difference, knownness and unknownness. They are illumined by the Chit. Knownness and unknownness of pot are illumined by the Chit, Sakshi. And object pot is illumined by the Chidabhasa. So in all particular knowledges, Chit and Chidabhasa are mixed together, including Brahmajnanam. In Brahmajnanam also, because the one who approaches the Shastra and teacher, he is not Brahman. Brahman doesn't approach anywhere. Pramata approaches. But Pramata basically, that is Chidabhasa, can never exist without Sakshi, consciousness, and therefore it is always a mixture. Only thing is, he understands that Pramatrutvam is Mithya. And so, Pramata is Mithya, Ahankara is Mithya. Basically, I am the Sakshi, consciousness, which pervades even the Ahankara. That's how it is. Like the 10th man is told when you are 10th, well, he understands that I am 9th is Mithya. But I am 10th, that is the reality. So that is how exactly it is like this. So it is always, in all particular knowledges, including Brahmajnanam, it is always a mixture. Only thing is, Ajnani doesn't know that there is a mixture. Jnani knows that there is a mixture, and in that, Chidabhasa or Ahankara or Pramata is Mithya, Chit Sakshi is Satyam. That is my real nature. That's it. So, this is how it is. That is why, this in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad there is a big contradiction as such. Yeah, because Atma has been revealed as a Abhokta and Atma has been revealed as a Bhokta. And therefore, that was a big Purupaksha there. So, how can you say, whereas in, to the Maitreyi, Yajnavalkya reveals Atma as a Bhokta initially. Yeah. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. Atmanastu kamaya, Atmanastu bhogaya. Ultimately, for the sake of Atma's enjoyment, everything is dear. Means Atma's enjoyment means Atma is enjoyer. Therefore, Atma is revealed as a Bhokta there to the Maitreyi. Because that is what Maitreyi knows about the self. And therefore, Yajnavalkya begins with that. Then he reveals that there is a mixture. And then ultimately says, well, in the mixture, that Bhoktrutvam, Bhokta is Mithya, and the Sakshi is Satyam. That is how it has been revealed. So, anyway, so this is how we have to understand. In all specific knowledges, particular knowledges, well, Vishesha Jnanam, Chit and Chidabhasa are always mixed together. And in that, while Chidabhasa is subject to fluctuations because thoughts keep changing, and therefore the reflections in the thought also keeps changing. And so in all experiences, well, this Chaitanyam is twofold. Chidabhasa is brighter than the Chit, so he experience brightness. That is called Vishesha Jnanam. Vishesha Jnanam means that there is a brightness. Samanya Jnanam means a little comparatively dull. And whereas when there is a gap between two experiences of between two experiences, there is a gap or a sushupti or a samadhi. When basically the mind is resolved, Chidabhasa also is resolved. So Dvigunigrita Chaitanyam is not there. Double twofold Chaitanyam is not there. Only Chin Matram is there. Only Sakshi is there. So Samanya Anubhava of Chit is there, which we call it as a Kutastha Anubhava or a Sakshi Anubhava. So he says in verse 24, Dvigunikrita Chaitanya, in context of this specific experiences, when Chaitanyam is twofold, specific knowledge or specific experiences, when Chaitanyam is twofold, Janmanasha Anubhutitaha. So we have an experience of an arrival and departure of these experiences this and thoughts, and therefore that means they are fluctuating and well akutastham, and they are based on basically this Chidabhasa etc., which is akutastham. Akutastham is there, it keeps changing, and it is always based on Kutastha Chaitanya. Chidabhasa always depends upon Chaitanya. So in all Vishesha experiences, well, we experience Chidabhasa, which overshadows the Kutastham, Sakshi, and that Chidabhasa is Akutastham Bhavati, that is, that keeps changing. Anyattu, whereas when specific experiences subsided in deep sleep, or we have just mentioned about between two thoughts, etc., or samadhi, etc., well, in that we experience a non-changing consciousness, and it is called Kutastham Chaitanya. So, why do you call Kutastham? Avikarataha, he says, because there is no fluctuation, no modification, because it doesn't depend upon thought. Sakshi does not depend upon thought, thought depends upon Sakshi. The thought occurs in Sakshi, thought resolves in Sakshi. There is no thought outside consciousness. There is no thought away from consciousness. There is no thought without consciousness. So thought occurs in consciousness, arises in consciousness, subsides in consciousness, like the wave, arises in the water, and sustained in the water, subsides in the water. Exactly like that. So this is the way he showed a difference between Chidabhasa and Chit or Sakshi in internal experiences. And now he concludes in the following two shlokas. Verse 25. Antahkarana tadvritti sakshityaadavanekadha kutastha eva sarvatra purvacharyai vinishchitaha. Even though Vidyaranya is very learned enough, so what he says will be right, but still he takes the support of a great Acharya. Sometimes he takes the support of a Sureshwaracharya, sometimes he takes support of a Shankaracharya's work, in which well, there is a relevant reference. So they say like Kalidasa also was like that. Even though Kalidasa also wrote so many poems and dramas, etc., very great Sanskrit scholar, but still in one of his works he writes in a Mangala Shloka in which he mentions that until some scholar reads my work and won't say that it is a great work, I will not consider my work is authentic enough. Similarly, Vidyaranya is very great. Still, well, he says, Purvacharyehi vinishchitaha. This Chit Chidabhasa Viveka, internally, externally, what I have been mentioning since few verses, has been consistently, clearly told by the Purvacharyas, earlier Acharyas. And now he gives an example of as a support. Antahkarana tadvritti sakshi. This is the verse has been taken from Vakyavritti. It has been mentioned also in the book. So Vakyavritti is basically does a vichara, analysis of Mahavakya. That's how it is Vakyavritti. and it has some more than 50 verses, and in this 11th verse this has been quoted here. So in that shloka, it has been Chit and Chidabhasa difference have been shown. So Chidabhasa, Sakshi, Chidabhasa is one, Sakshi illumines that mind and thought, which is, we call it as a Chidabhasa. So question is whether Chit illumines the mind or Chidabhasa illumines the mind. That's the question. Chidabhasa illumines the mind, Chidabhasa which is formed illumines the mind, or Chit illumines the mind. Well, our question is, we give a counter example immediately. We say moonlight illumines the mind or sunlight illumines the mind. That's the question. If you say moonlight illumines the mind, means it doesn't require sunlight now. To illumine the moonlight is required, then you don't require sunlight. But in absence of sunlight, moon is not illumined anyway. And therefore, basically sunlight only illumines the moon, and that is in the form of a reflected sunlight, which is called moonlight. That moonlight illumines the world. Not moonlight does not illumine the moon. So basically, reflection illumines everything else other than the original and reflecting medium. That's it. Reflection always illumines everything other than the original and reflecting medium. That's it. Reflection can illumine everything. This too it cannot illumine. So reflection cannot illumine reflecting medium. So mind is basically, which is a reflecting medium, is illumined by not Chidabhasa, is illumined by Sakshi. Iti adau, in such shlokas, anekada, manifold ways, kutastha eva vinishchitaha. Kutastha is talked about. So this is the thing. So definitely. So if you say Sakshi illumines the mind, that's it. Swamiji, you were to show difference between Sakshi and Chidabhasa, Chit and Chidabhasa. Now here you say Sakshi illumines the mind, that is the difference between Sakshi and Chidabhasa. That is what it is. Why? Sakshi illumines the mind in form of Chidabhasa. That's it. Sakshi illumines the mind. Like what? Sunlight illumines the mirror. How? Well, in form of a reflection of a sun. That's it. That's how it is. So there is no other thing. No, but every other thing is illumined. You don't say Chidabhasa everywhere. That is what you are right. And the sunlight illumines the even wall also. Sunlight illumines the mirror also. Why are you not saying, sunlight illumines the wall? Well, there you are not mentioning about reflected sun. But what can we do? The material is like that. So, sun illumines everything, but including even mirror also. When sun illumines the mirror, there will be a formation of a reflected sun. That's it. So, we can say that like this. So, same here, Sakshi illumines the mind, automatically, Chidabhasa will be there, because mind is like the mirror. And even if I won't mention mind, we know for sure in Drisha Viveka, we have seen mind and Chidabhasa, they are inseparable. So wherever the mind, Chidabhasa will be always there. Just Chidabhasa is impossible. Just mind without Chidabhasa is impossible. So therefore, always mind is associated with Chidabhasa. That we have seen the connection between mind and Chidabhasa, connection between mind and the body, connection between the mind and the Sakshi, with those three sambandhas we have already seen in Drisha Viveka. So, mind and Chidabhasa has an association which we call as a Sahajatadatmyam. Sahajayate. They are always together. Always, even in an unmanifest condition. When mind becomes unmanifest, it's not that the reflection will not be there. We will say reflection also is there. Chidabhasa is there in unmanifest condition. So they are all the time together. So, so this is the first pramana. He has given to show that what I am saying, that Chit Chidabhasa Viveka, well, definitely has been mentioned even by Bhashyakara, I mean, by Shankaracharya ji in a Vakya Vritti. There is another pramana also, another proof he is giving now. So, and that is from Upadesha Sahasri, and there also, well, Chit Chidabhasa is, elaborately discussed there, and so he is mentioning in verse 26. Atma bhasashrayashchaivam mukha bhasashraya yatha gamyante shastra yuktibhyam ityabhasascha varnitah. So Upadesh Sahasri and chapter 18 verse 43. It has been mentioned as 109 also, well, but I didn't check it actually. So, but this is there, verse 43, chapter 18, Upadesh Sahasri. And in this, what he has quoted is a 3/4 of the verse. So, Gamyante Shastra Yukti Bhyam, before iti, well, that is the quotation from Upadesh Sahasri. Iti abhasascha varnitah, that is his own edition. Means, iti abhasascha varnitah means this is how abhasa, Chidabhasa has been described there also in Upadesh Sahasri by Shankaracharya ji. So what he says, Atma abhasa ashrayaha. Atma, Chit, Sakshi, original consciousness. Abhasa, Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. Ashraya, the reflecting medium. So these three are compared. Mukhabhasa shraya yatha. Yatha mukhabhasa shrayaha tatha atma bhasa shrayaha. Like that. So, yatha. Yatha means just as in this example, mukha, abhasa and ashraya. Mukha, mukham, face, original. Abhasa, the reflected face. And ashraya, the mirror. So, these are similarities between them. That's how this is an example. So, there are three things in our example also, and three things here also. So, face, original face, plus reflected face, plus the ashraya, the reflecting medium, that is mirror. Same way, original consciousness, plus reflected consciousness, and the reflecting medium, the mind, etc. And reflecting medium can be taken as a Shariratrayam. Generally, they take Shariratrayam. Ahankara has been mentioned differently in a different way, but there is nothing, no contradiction. When I say Ahankara, I may say just it's a function of the mind, or I say just conscious mind. I may say just Aham Vritti, or I may say Ahankara is equal to the Sharira Traya, all the three bodies plus Chidabhasa. Either way. Aham Vritti plus Chidabhasa you can say. Either you say conscious mind, you can, that way you can say, or you say three bodies plus Chidabhasa. You have to say Chidabhasa. Or sometime you say, well, just Chidabhasa. That's also alright. Chidabhasa, Jiva. You can say Jiva also. You can say Pramata. You can say Chidabhasa. You can say ego, individuality, the sense of individuality, the individual. Either way. Whole thing is mithya. The three bodies are mithya. The Chidabhasa which is formed in that is also mithya. And therefore the Ahankara is mithya. And the whole Ahankara exists and shines in Chit Sakshi. That's how we have to say. So Atma means original consciousness, Abhasa reflected consciousness, and Ashraya, three bodies. Here it has been simplified as a mind. Instead of saying three bodies, you can say just mind. That is Ashraya. Gamyante. Gamyante is equal to Gnayante. They are known. By Shastra Yukti Bhyam, with the help of a Shruti and Yukti. So this is has been mentioned there. Atma Abhasa Ashrayaha. So Atma, the Chit and Abhasa has been mentioned by Shankaracharya ji in Upadesh Sahasri separately. That shows there is a difference. Still here in America, there is a very big group which Vedantins, they say this, they don't accept this Chidabhasa. So they must be better than even Vidyaranya and Shankaracharya ji also. Very good. Somebody came to me and said, Chidabhasa model, we should not accept this Chidabhasa. There cannot be a reflection of a consciousness in anything, and therefore it is just a model. It is not, everything is mithya. In mithya, you put one thing or two things. What does it make a difference? But anyway, people here, a very big influential group of Vedanta, they don't accept Chidabhasa. Bhashyakara, Shankaracharya ji mentions, Vidyaranya ji has also mentioned about this. They all took help of Chidabhasa. Anyway, so iti abhasa varnita. This is how abhasa, regarding Chidabhasa, Chit Chidabhasa, Viveka, in internal differences with this topic is over. Now, before going to the next topic, well, we would like to address this a doubt. And that doubt we have never, nobody asked that question, fortunately to me. And therefore, now, even if you don't ask, we will resolve the issue. What is that? In verse number 24 and the previous verses also, Vidyaranya says, well, during the silence between the two thoughts, in Sushupti, in Samadhi, and in that coma state, etc., when person becomes unconscious, well, thoughts have resolved, mind has resolved, Chidabhasa is resolved, only you experience Kutastha. So, and in Tattvabodha, in Mandukya Karika, and many other books, they say what is obtained in a deep sleep state is a prajna, not sakshi. And there, no, but it may be so that Mandukya Karika, even though say prajna, but prajna is equal to turiya. No. Turiya has been mentioned after that, as separate from prajna. Nantah prajnam, na bahish prajnam, na ubayatah prajnam, na prajnam, na prajnam, etc., na prajnana ganam. Like that has been mentioned, negating all the three, Vishwa, Taijasa, and Prajna. Turiya has been mentioned separately, and therefore Prajna is equal to Turiya. That was an intention in Mandukya, we cannot say. Anyway, and therefore then in deep sleep state and between two thoughts and in a coma state and in a samadhi, you say only sakshi is available. How can you say that? Upanishad says in sleep prajna is available. Only prajna, that is a jiva, ahankara. How can you say sakshi is obtained? So what you clarify before you go further, you clarify whether what we experience in deep sleep state is a sakshi or prajna. Well, answer is simple as such. We say either way it is okay. Either way. You say sakshi obtains in deep sleep state is okay. No, prajna obtains in deep sleep state. Okay, no problem. So, in Sushupti, let us first, in Sushupti, first question, in Sushupti, whether sakshi is there or not. Well, who has experienced the blankness? Anyone who has experienced blankness must be a conscious entity. Okay. And now, other than that so-called ahankara, that is resolved. Ahankara means you have to bring the mind. Mind has resolved. If mind has not resolved, how there is a deep sleep state? So definitely mind has resolved, senses have resolved, everything is resolved. And therefore, ahankara, so-called conscious entity, the pseudo-conscious entity, is experiencing the blankness you cannot say. And if ahankara is present, two things will be there. Very strong evidence of ahankara. If ahankara is there, sense of individuality, sense of location will be there. Why? Because ahankara means shariratraya plus chidabhasa. Therefore, sense of individuality will be there, sense of location will be there. If these two are there in deep sleep state, there is no deep sleep state. Therefore, ahankara is resolved. There is no sense of individuality, no sense of location. And therefore, definitely there is ahankara is already resolved. So ahankara is also conscious, it has experienced blankness that cannot be said, and therefore what else is left is this sakshi alone. So sakshi is present. So in sushupti sakshi is present. Okay, in sushupti reflecting medium, reflected consciousness are there. We can say yes and we can say no. I answered differently in previously. Now I will say this way. I can say yes, they are present. Reflecting medium, reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa, both are present. In short, Ahankara is present. And I can say no, it is not present. Technically, they are unmanifest. And when they are unmanifest, means when they are passive, not functioning, they are as good as not there. As good as not there. So, it is present in unmanifest form. Unmanifest Chidabhasa plus Chitta Sakshi is equal to Prajna. Right? And so, when you exclude unmanifest Chidabhasa, then I say Sakshi is present in deep sleep state. And when you, so experientially, you will have a Sakshi Anubhava. Experientially. Because what is unmanifest you cannot experience. And if you say I am experiencing Chidabhasa, then definitely you experience sense of individuality, sense of location. You don't have a sense of individuality, sense of location. So even though they are there, but you don't experience. So experientially Sakshi alone is present. Technically both are present. Technically both are present. Unmanifest reflected consciousness plus unmanifest reflecting mind plus the Sakshi, not unmanifest Sakshi. There cannot be unmanifest Sakshi. Okay? Unmanifest Sakshi. If unmanifest Sakshi, then in what it has become unmanifest? Let us go to that. Okay? Everything becomes manifest and manifest in Sakshi. Sakshi is ever evident. There is no question of an unmanifest Sakshi. Please understand this. Unmanifest Sakshi is not possible. Everything becomes manifest and unmanifest in Sakshi. Whole world. World has a two states, unmanifest state and manifest state. Unmanifest state is a Maya, while that also is present in Sakshi, the consciousness we will call Brahman. And the Maya will become manifest, called world, also exists in consciousness. And therefore, unmanifest reflected consciousness plus unmanifest medium, naturally we have to say that way only. Medium remains manifest and reflection becomes unmanifest. That's not possible. Therefore, which we call as a Karana Sharira plus the consciousness, which is ever evident, which has not to prove to anybody that I exist. That's called evident, self-evident. Whose existence need not be proved, whose existence cannot be proved, but which is still self-existent, that is the Sakshi. What doesn't require to be proved to be existent is called self-existent. Entire world, unmanifest and manifest, Maya or this Jagat, will need to be proved to be existent by the consciousness. Consciousness doesn't require to be proved as existent by anything. Therefore, it is self-existent. It is in the form of I. I doesn't require to be proved as existent, well, by any means of knowledge. To prove existence of every other thing, you need I. But to prove the existence of I, you don't need anything. And if you say we need it, you require another I. Then if I requires another I to be proved to be existent, then the first I is a non-I. To understand your immortal nature, you have to reflect upon this. There is no other way. What what is not required to be proved as an existent, which is self-existent, is because its existence is not dependent upon anything else, and therefore I is by nature existence, which we call Sat. And if it is existence, 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 it is now, now, now. And what is existence by nature will never become non existent, which never becomes non existent, never becomes mortal. Understand this. So these are few things. These are just few things to get rid of the fear of mortality. Dwell upon it often. Anyway, so experientially there is a Sakshi Anubhava in a deep sleep state, and keeping experience in the mind, we are saying Sakshi is present. But why? You should talk technical things. No. Right now, since many verses, we have already started analyzing experiences. Where? That's what we do. Chit Chidabhasa Viveka in external experiences, Chit Chidabhasa Viveka in internal experiences. So we are analyzing experiences. So experientially only Sakshi is present, because what is unmanifest you cannot experience. And though technically Chidabhasa is there, reflecting medium is there, but both are unmanifest. But why we cannot notice it? They are passive. What is passive? What doesn't function will not come into the mind. And being what is unmanifest will never become an object of your perception. And therefore, experientially Sakshi is present, and therefore we are saying based on that. Well, we can take an example. There are two glasses, and in that I am putting glass of made up of glass, okay, and in that I am putting a water, clean water in both. And I tell you that you please see both the glasses have water or not. Yeah. Can you find a difference? He said, no, there is no difference. Same glass, same water, no difference. I can't distinguish one from the other. Okay, I said, go out for 1 minute. When he went out, I added a little sugar in one glass and dissolved it also. And I called him back. I said, now can you find the difference? He said, I don't find any difference. This is also clean water, this is also clean water. Right? So, Sharkara Sahitam Jalam, Sharkara Rahitam Jalam. Still no difference. Experientially no difference. Technically there is a difference. One has a sugar, one is sweet water, one is just water. But experientially, I mean in terms of seeing, no difference. So when we talk about based on, I mean when we are analyzing our experiences to make the difference between Chit and Chidabhasa, well, in that case, definitely we have to say what is available in experience, especially in deep sleep state right now. Well, only Sakshi, experientially Sakshi is available, which reveals even the blankness of which reveals the blankness, which reveals the silence, which reveals absence of everything. And therefore, it is okay. So, you can say prajna is there. Or if you say prajna, well, fine. You are talking technically. When I say Sakshi is present, I am giving weightage to the experience. So in Vedanta, we have two statements also. Not that we are just trying to prove something. In Upanishads also, both the things are there. In Sushupti, we are just prajna. Mandukya Karika has mentioned very well. In Chandogya, if you go there, this analysis of Sushupti has been done in the 6th chapter itself, where the Atma has been introduced as a Sat, and there it has been very well known statement, Sata Somya Tada Sampanno Bhavati Swam Apito Bhavati Tasya Swapiti Iti Nama Tada Sampanno Bhavati. Sata He Somya Sata Sampanno Bhavati. In a deep sleep state, this individual, this Jiva, well, Sat Rupena, Sata is a Ithambhute Tritiya, as in the form of a Sat, he resolves. Means he becomes one with the Sat, he is Sat. So Sushupti, in Sushupti there is a Sat only, that is what Chandogya tells. In Mandukya Karika, no. In deep sleep state there is a Prajna. So that kind of a thing is there. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Prajna and Turiya are equated. So, while some Upanishad gives a weightage to the technical differences, while experientially when you talk, well, they are one. Even in Samadhi also, still thoughts are not there. Still mind is there, but thoughts are not there. Mind has not resolved. Mind is absorbed, not resolved. If resolved deep sleep state, mind is absorbed in a given thing, in the self. Well, that is the Samadhi. There also, well, definitely, it is just oneself. In Samadhi also one experiences oneself. So if suppose in Samadhi mind goes away totally, then the person would not survive. So, or mind sleeps, resolves, then that becomes a Sushupti. But no, he's quite awake. If he's quite awake, mind is there, but with no thoughts. That's how they remove all the thoughts, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, etc. Anyway, so in all possible avasthas, mind, manifest, unmanifest mind will be there, and but what is obtained experientially is basically only Sakshi, Turiya. So Vidyaranya wanted to teach, Chitchidavasa Viveka through experiences, external, internal. Right now we were talking internal experiences, and therefore he gives a weightage of a Sakshi. Sakshi Anubhava is there in Sushupti. He says that is okay. Verse 27. Buddhyavachinna kutastha lokantaragamadamau kartum shakto ghatakashah ivabhasena kimbada. So with verse 26, this Chit Chidavasa, Antar Chidavasa Chit Viveka is over. Up to verse 16, from the beginning up to verse 16, we did a Bahya Chit Chidavasa Viveka in form of a knownness and unknownness and the knowing the part knowledge, etc. Then from verse 17 to 26, well, Antar Chidavasa Chit Viveka also we did. And when we did a Viveka, in external experiences, instead of a Chit, we said Brahman. Right? Chit Chidavasa Viveka, there we mention as a Brahma Chidavasa Viveka, etc. Yeah. Internal, well, we say Sakshi or Kutastha Chidavasa Viveka. You can say both that way. Now, from verse 27, Vidyaranya enters into a highly technical subject matter, and based on a Vichara Sagara, and I am going to show you the differences also. And that is the three models, Abhasavada, Pratibhimbavada and Avachedavada. I will clearly show you the difference between the three. And this topic is from verse 27 to 68. Very big topic. So, because till now we mentioned Abhasa, Chidabhasa, and sometimes Chit Pratibimba, etc. So, is there a difference between these prakriyas or not? That's the question. So, when we give a definition, let's see a few just introduction and then we'll go to the verse. So, when we give a definition of a jiva, we take different examples according to context. In one context, you say original consciousness, that is Sakshi. and the reflected consciousness in the thought, mind, etc. That is Chidabhasa. Abhasa Chaitanya. That is Jiva. So there is a Jiva and there is a Paramatma. Jivatma, Paramatma. And in chapter 6 we also saw that Veshti Pratibimbit Chaitanyam, right, is Jiva. Samashti Pratibimbit Chaitanyam is Ishvara. Chaturveda Akasha, if you remember, example of a Chaturveda Akasha, where we mentioned 4 types of Akasha: Mahakasha, Meghakasha, Jalakasha and Ghatakasha. And there 2 reflecting mediums have been very clearly shown. One was a water in the pot. One was a water in the clouds. So one is a Veshti and one is a Samashti. And in that, well, definitely Akasha gets reflected. So Akasha reflected in the water in the pot is a Jalakasha. Akasha reflected in the water of the clouds, and in terms of drops are there. So that is Meghakasha. And the external Akasha which is reflected there in the Meghakasha, definitely. So that is Mahakasha, etc. And here in a pot, there is a pot space, Ghatakasha, that is reflected in a water in the pot. So these are 2 reflecting mediums, 2 reflected spaces, etc. Same way here also, Vyashti reflecting medium, Shariratraya, let us take that way. And well, the consciousness reflected in Shariratraya is called Jiva. And consciousness reflected in a Samashti, Prapanchatraya as medium. So that is a Ishvara. So the method of teaching is either you say consciousness reflected, Pratibimba I mean, or consciousness Abhasa, either you say. So Abhasavada or a Pratibimbavada. So basically a method of teaching in which Jiva is defined as a reflected consciousness is called Abhasavada or Pratibimbavada. Here I am taking that way, but really speaking, I will show you the difference between even Abhasavada and Pratibimbavada that I have made in notes, because somewhere I had to, in some university, I had to go to give a talk on differences between 3. Anyway, just a 15-20 minutes topic, but not today. I will take it in the next class. But here let's take, because Acharya has taken that way, Abhasavada and Pratibimbavada is one. Either you say Abhasa of a consciousness in a Vyashti medium, I mean Shariyatraya, or you say Abhasa, or you say Pratibimba of consciousness in a Shariyatraya. That is a Jiva. And Pratibimba or a Abhasa in a Prapanchatraya, well, is a Ishvara. So Abhasavada, Pratibimbavada is on one side. It has been taken, the Acharya, whose help I am taking. Anyway, so Pratibimbavada is primarily used by basically Padmapadacharya ji. Abhasavada is primarily used by Sureshwaracharya ji and Vidyaranya Swami also. Sureshwaracharya ji has used even in a Nishkrimisiti also. So sometime, while Jiva is defined as with a third category also is there. Jiva is not a Abhasa or Jiva is not a Pratibimba. Well, Jiva is also defined as they give an example of a Ghatakasha, pot space. So there is a all-pervading space, and as the pot is created, well, some space has become enclosed in the pot. Well, that is Ghatakasha. So they call enclosed space Avachinna Akasha. So this is Avachedavada. So same way, all-pervading consciousness, well, how it becomes Jiva? Enclosed consciousness. Well, bodies are created. As the bodies are created, the consciousness manifests in that bodies, in the mind. Well, that is Avachinna Chaitanyam. Clear? Avachinna Chaitanyam. That is Jiva. And all-pervading consciousness is Brahman. And this method is used by Gaudapadacharyaji in the third chapter of Mandukya Karika. So Ghatakasha means like a Jiva and Mahakasha is like a Brahman. And there are so many Ghatakashas, right? So as many parts, so many spaces. So Ghatakashas are many and they are small and big, whatever you, depending upon the size of the pot. So many Jivas. And when the Gata is born, that Ghatakasha is born. And still the Mahakasha will remain, Brahman will be there. Now between these two prakriyas, Abhasavada, Pratibhimbavada versus Avachedavada, which method is superior? I am taking that way. Really later I am going to show you the difference between all the three. But let us take here Abhasavada, Pratibhimbavada on one side versus Avachedavada, which method is superior? Shankaracharyaji's approach is not to find what is superior. Because they are used as a means, we should see the end ultimately. What do you want at the end? We want to know Brahman as Atma. That's it. Okay. That's it. And why you experience as a Jiva? Well, we are explaining you through Abhasavada, Pratibhimbavada or Avachedavada, etc. Therefore, which method we are employing, that is not important. We want to show that you experience yourself as an individual, Jiva. That is Mithya. In fact, you are Brahman, all pervading consciousness. So in that we have interest. So Shankaracharyaji, without comparing any prakriya, uses both the prakriyas. Avachedavada also he uses, and Abhasavada also he uses, and Pratibhimbavada also he uses. So in Manisha Panchakam he uses both. Example of a reflected sun and enclosed space. He gives both the examples to explain this Jivatvam. And therefore, we should not quarrel, but there are people who quarrel for this. Fortunately, we are away from them. Even Gaudapadacharyaji, Dada Guru of Shankaracharyaji, also does not want to differentiate much. He uses both. Avachedavada, as I mentioned, of course in Mandukya it is there. And in Upanishad itself, both the types of examples are there. And Acharyas take example of Upanishad. And so Gaudapadacharyaji, Shankaracharyaji, they did not differentiate. Later Acharyas have differentiated, and this is better and that is better, and like that it has happened. And right now we are also in that rut. Now we have to see what is better and what is not, etc. It's a mock fight actually to sharpen our intellect. It is really good. So Pratibhimbavada of Padmapadacharyaji, Abhasavada of Sureshwaracharyaji, and Avachedavada of Vachaspati Mishra. Why we are saying? Because later Acharyas. Avachedavada has been used by Gaudapadacharyaji, but he doesn't bother about it. Whatever prakriya has come in my mind, he has just mentioned that enclosed consciousness is this Jiva, and the all-pervading consciousness is Brahman, etc., etc. Anyway, Vachaspati Mishra, who has written a commentary called Bhamati on Brahmasutra Bhashyam, and from his wife's name, his wife was Bhamati. It seems that Vachaspati Mishra was so engrossed in writing a commentary on Brahmasutra Bhashyam, and so he was not paying any attention in the household things. And Bhamati used to take care of him so much. Even he used to eat food and everything, but he doesn't even think of who is making all this, who is taking care of me. And later, after all these things were over, then he realized that, she has served so much. So he named the commentary of, let's say, Tika actually, on Brahmasutra Bhashyam as a Bhamati Tika. Very wonderful, very beautiful Tika. So, he basically gives emphasis on Avachedavada. Sureshwaracharyaji and Vidyaranya Swami also gives a emphasis on Abhasavada. And Padmapadacharyaji, one of the disciples of Shankaracharyaji, has given importance to Pratibhimbavada. But why should we not bother? It may be so, Swamiji, that we may not be able to see the differences in our intellect, and therefore we are saying all this is mithya, differences are not mithya, are mithya, etc. We should not go into the nuances and all that. No, it's not so. Once we come to Brahman, then we realize this Jiva is going to be negated. Either a Pratibimba, Jiva is either a Pratibimba, Jiva is either a Avachinna, or Jiva is either a Abhasa, Chidabhasa. It is going to be negated, and so for Mithya things, well, we should not fight. Anyway, and in different context, different Vadas are handy, and therefore we should keep those Vadas in the mind. They become handy. So in Karmakanda context, Abhasavada is very useful. In Jnanakanda, Vachedavada is very useful. And so Vidyaranya wants to have fun now for some time. So he is doing this academic analysis. So he has created a Purvapaksha here. A Purvapaksha on one side Sureshwaracharya or Vidyaranya Swami. On the other side Vachaspati Mishra. Sureshwaracharya, Vidyaranya Swami believes in Abhasavada, let us say. Vachaspati Mishra believes in Avachedavada, and therefore there is a mock fight between them, let us say. So Vidyaranya takes a paksha of, as I told you, Sureshwaracharya. He will vote for Abhasavada, and Avachedavada becomes a Purvapakshi. Now let us see. He has got a mic. Purvapakshi. Our Vachaspati Mishra, Avachedavadi, has got a mic. He argues. He says in explaining, this is a very wonderful thing. In explaining any phenomena, you have to take into account the factors, various factors. If you take into account all the factors, with those factors you can explain any phenomena. But suppose to explain a given phenomena, you can explain it with 8 factors. Now the same phenomena, suppose someone explains with 5 factors, then whose explanation is a better explanation? That is the criteria. And we have 2 words also coined for that. One is called Gauravam, other is called Laghavam. Laghavam has come from the word Laghu, less. Gauravam has come from the word Guru, more. So to explain a given phenomena, you need 8 factors. Where the same phenomena is explained by someone else with 5 factors, then we will say that person's explanation has a Laghavam. Whereas the person who is explaining with the 8 factors, we will say he has a Gauravam, because he needs more factors. Now, basically intellect wants to understand phenomena. If someone explains me the phenomena with the less factors, my intellect will have a less load. Whereas if the same phenomena has been explained with many factors, my intellect will be loaded with many factors, more. And therefore between Gauravam and Laghavam, Gauravam is considered as a dosha. Guroho bhavaha Gauravam. Lagoho bhavam Laghavam. This is how it is. So between Gauravam and Laghavam, what is dosha? Gauravam is a dosha. You have to imagine many factors to explain the same phenomena. The other person explains this, he imagines less factors to explain the phenomena. Therefore, Avachedivadi attacks on Abhasavadi or Pratibimbavadi, either. Abhasavadi, let us take. That you are explaining Jiva Mithya, Brahma Satyam, etc. with the Abhasavada, but there you are imagining 3 factors. What are the 3? Original consciousness, reflecting medium, plus reflected consciousness. Chidabhasa. 3 factors. Whereas, see, in Avachedavada, we have only 2. Enclosed consciousness, Jiva. All-pervading consciousness, Brahman. Over. What else? Nothing. And therefore, well, This is your prakriya has a dosha, gaurava dosha. And he mentions here that in Abhasavada, Jiva has three components. This was original consciousness, reflecting medium, reflecting consciousness. You have to introduce reflected consciousness. And that is how you mentioned also Dviguni Kruta Chaitanyam. In example, you have mentioned. And for that purpose, you have shown also the example of a face, and then mirror, and then there is a reflected face, and all that you have said. So, whereas in Avachedavada, we have two things. One is a Mahakasha, other is a pot. And that pot has an enclosed space. Is not an addition. Why? Why? Like our mirror and original consciousness. Mirror and original face. Then reflected face, you have to add? Yes, we have to add. Same way here you have to add. What? Enclosed space you have to add. You need two. What? You need pot. You need space. All pervading space. That is enough? Yeah, that is enough. No, you need pot space. That you should add it. No, I will not add it. Enclosed Akasha is not addition. Why? Because it is the same as all pervading Akasha in enclosure. Unenclosed is Mahakasha. Enclosed we call Ghatakasha, but Ghatakasha is not an entity at all. In fact, one Akasha alone in which this pot is there. You coined a term called Ghatakasha. Enclosed space also is Mahakasha only. One Mahakasha in which the whole pot is there. And therefore we have our enclosed Akasha is not a third factor. Same way enclosed consciousness is Jiva, unenclosed consciousness is Paramatma. We have not to take into account this original consciousness, reflecting medium. And then if you don't add reflected consciousness, where is Jiva? Where is Jiva? Which is not the case here. Akasha, pot. That's it. Enclosed Akasha is not addition. So we have Laghavam, and therefore give up your Abhasavada and come to our side. That is how it is. Avachedavada. And we can, but what about this individuality? We have a Chidabhasa, so we can explain individuality and plurality and the sense of location and everything. How will you explain all these things? We can explain. We can Ghatakasha when you say, automatically individuality. Well, plurality is there. And and the travel also, right? Pot travels, pot space travels. Everything we can explain. We don't need we don't need any other fact. And therefore, well, Avachedavada is better than Abhasavada. Vidyarnya says no. Answer will be later. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.